Well, a new form of violence is plaguing Sweden, shooting spiking significantly since 2000. The country going from one of the lowest rates of gun violence in Europe to one of the highest. And many are pointing to an increase of a certain form of immigration, saying it is not properly controlled. So is this what the United States could expect in the future as illegal immigration continues unchecked across our borders? Let's ask Ami Horowitz, a documentary filmmaker who witnessed firsthand the criminal activity while examining the effects of a certain form of immigration within the country. We were just talking, Ami, thanks for being here. You were doing a documentary film there. You were attacked. It was a big news item in 2017. Share a little bit of what you encountered. And then when we talk about this immigration, get to the heart of what it is in Sweden.
Yeah, so when I went there because there was a significant increase in Islamic immigration in Sweden because this is when the Syrian civil war was happening and they were taking in a massive amount of Syrian refugees. At the same time, there was an increase in murder and rape that occurred. And I wanted to see if there was a correlation or a causation between those two things. When I went there, I also discovered what they call no-go zones. These are areas where literally, if you're non-Muslim, you cannot enter. And that's not hyperbole. Like literally, police would move police stations out of these areas because they were coming under attack all the time. So I went there to find out what was going on. In fact, I did see a connection between these two things. Not necessarily saying that all Islamic immigration is bad or most people are engaged in this type of behavior. It's simply not true. But you have to understand that when you go from roughly 0% Islamic population to now what is almost 10%, you are going to see some social dislocation, but people refuse to acknowledge any connection whatsoever.
No doubt. I appreciate everything you just said with such clarity. And let's put up a graph of some of this surge in immigration in Sweden, because you heard, liberals and others talking about the model states in the past. Sweden was always top on the list. And here you've got an example. Oh, this is gun deaths, but I was talking about the immigration surge as well, I think is the next graphic we have. It's just been hundreds of thousands of Islamic immigrants. But it's a refusal to assimilate to Swedish culture that creates these enclaves that have a very different view than the West does.
Yeah, and on the gun death stat, I mean, it's Stockholm, right, has 30 times the gun deaths than London, for example. I mean, you've seen just in the last year, this year alone, year's not even over yet, you have almost 400 shootings, over 50 deaths, 150 explosions, gang-related explosions happening. And again, what I guess we have to understand is that, yes, there is an issue when it comes to it, but there's a denial that comes with it as well. And that's the larger problem. It refuses to accept, for example, doing show prep. You're looking at the articles written about the gang violence happening, and they do whatever they can. It's like jujitsu not to say the word Islamic immigration. They say vulnerable communities, they say poverty. I mean, The Guardian did an entire stat. They said 5 stats that explain gun violence in Sweden without mentioning, it talked about inequality without mentioning Islamic immigration.
Every single time in every article, you've got to go down to paragraph 28 to even get a sense of the perpetrator, or it's always maybe you'll get that. And then they'll say, well, it's a second or third generation thing. It's not well, if we're at the second or third generation of a Muslim immigrant who's not accepting being a part of Sweden, that's a really big problem. And then if those groups are having 5 or 6 kids and local Swedes are having 1.5, that changes the country really quick.
And look, in the U.S., we have we have Islamic population here, but we don't have the same level of violence. We have integrated our immigrants. We've had a history of integrating immigrants into here in a way where they've become American first, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why we don't see the same problems we have here. Europe has not done the same thing. So you've seen this pattern in Germany, you see it in Sweden, in France, and it has led to a significant change in politics that we've seen recently because of it.
No doubt. I mean, smaller country populations and larger surges because of that Syrian refugee crisis you talked about. But if we're not careful, you can have the same problem in certain states in our country, too. Let's hope we learn from it. Ami, thank you so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Great to see you.